Welcome to English Insight Podcast. Learn English through story and real growth. In today's video, you're not just going to practice English. You're going to finally understand why your English hasn't been improving, even though you've been trying, studying, watching videos, and putting in effort. This session is designed to improve your listening and vocabulary, yes, but more importantly, it's designed to fix the invisible mistakes that have been slowing you down without you even realizing it. Whether you're a beginner or somewhere in between, put on your headphones, maybe open a notebook, and stay with me, because this might be the most honest conversation you've ever heard about learning English. By the end of this session, you will have learned more than 10 natural English expressions, understood a powerful real-life story, and felt calmer, clearer, and more confident about how to move forward with English. Ready? Let's start. Let me begin with something uncomfortable, but necessary. If your English isn't improving, it's probably not because you're doing nothing. It's because you're doing too many things that don't move the needle. Most learners are busy, not effective. They watch lessons, save posts, download apps, follow teachers, and feel productive, but months pass, and speaking still feels heavy. Listening still feels tiring. Confidence still feels far away. And that creates frustration. You start asking yourself questions that quietly damage motivation. Why am I still slow? Why do others improve faster? Is something wrong with me? Here's the truth nobody tells you clearly. English doesn't improve linearly. It improves when the right conditions are present. And most learners never create those conditions. Let me explain with a real example. A learner from Italy once said something simple but powerful. He said, I was learning English every day, but English was never learning me. What did he mean? He meant English never became part of his daily thinking. It stayed external, something he studied, not something he used. And that's where progress dies quietly. Here's the first reason your English isn't improving. You're treating English like information, not like a skill. Information can be understood silently. Skills must be practiced out loud and perfectly repeatedly. You can understand swimming by reading, but you don't learn to swim until you enter the water. English works the same way. Another common problem is this. Learners wait for confidence before they speak. They believe confidence comes first, then speaking follows. But confidence doesn't come from waiting. It comes from surviving imperfection. Every fluent speaker you admire once spoke badly. The difference is not talent. It's tolerance for discomfort. And here's something even more important. Many learners think their problem is grammar or vocabulary. In reality, the biggest problem is fear disguised as preparation. You keep preparing because preparation feels safe. Speaking feels risky. So your brain chooses safety. And slowly, English becomes something you know, but never own. Let me tell you about a learner from Japan. She studied English for 12 years. Excellent test scores. strong reading skills. But in conversations, she froze. One day, she changed nothing about her materials, only her behavior. She started speaking English alone, every day, for 5 minutes. Not practicing lessons, just talking about her thoughts. At first, it was painful, then awkward, then normal. 6 months later, her teacher noticed something strange. Her grammar wasn't perfect, but her flow was alive. Her pauses disappeared. Her voice sounded confident. What changed? English stopped living only in her head. This brings us to another hidden reason your English isn't improving. You consume too much and produce too little. Watching without speaking feels like learning, but it doesn't train retrieval. And fluency is retrieval. You don't become fluent by recognizing English. You become fluent by recalling it under pressure. That pressure doesn't have to be public. It can be private, but it must exist. Another mistake that quietly blocks progress is overcorrection. You stop yourself mid-sentence. You restart. You apologize. You lose momentum. Fluent speakers don't speak perfectly. They speak continuously. Continuity matters more than correctness. There's also the issue of emotional attachment. Many learners emotionally identify as bad at English. They repeat this story internally for years. And the brain believes repetition. Change begins when the story changes. You're not bad at English. You're undertrained in the right way. Right now, as you listen, something important should be happening. Not excitement, clarity. That calm realization that says, oh, that's why. And here's the most important part. Your English isn't improving because no one taught you how improvement actually feels. Improvement feels messy before it feels smooth. It feels slow before it feels fast. It feels uncomfortable before it feels confident. If your English feels uncomfortable right now, that might be a good sign, not a bad one. In the next part of this video, we're going to talk about exactly how to fix this, step by step, without studying more, without burning out, and without trying to become perfect. We'll talk about the one adjustment that makes progress visible again, how to rebuild confidence after years of frustration, and how to finally feel that your English is moving forward, not just passing time. Stay with me, because understanding the problem was the hard part. Fixing it is simpler than you think. As we continue, let me say this clearly, because this is where many people finally wake up. Your English is not improving because you are trying to fix symptoms, not the system. You try to learn more words when the real issue is access to words. You try to study grammar when the real issue is speed of thinking. You try to sound correct when the real issue is emotional pressure. So nothing changes. Let me explain something that almost nobody explains honestly. Progress in English doesn't feel like improvement at first. It feels like exposure. You feel more aware of your mistakes. You notice gaps you didn't notice before. You feel slower, not faster. And many learners quit right here because they misread the signal. They think, I'm getting worse. In reality, they're getting more conscious. A learner from France once described it perfectly. He said, the moment I felt most confused was the moment my English started reorganizing itself. That confusion wasn't failure. It was restructuring. Another reason your English isn't improving is because you don't give your brain enough repetition in context. You change methods too fast. 1 week podcasts, next week apps, then grammar, then motivation videos. Your brain never settles. Fluency comes from seeing the same patterns again and again until they become automatic. That's why children watch the same stories repeatedly. That's why musicians repeat the same pieces. That's why athletes drill fundamentals. Variety feels exciting. Repetition builds mastery. Here's something else that quietly blocks progress. You don't close learning loops. You listen, but don't reuse. You learn, but don't activate. You understand, but don't express. Learning without output fades. A learner from Egypt shared that for years he listened to English every day, but nothing changed. Then he added one rule. For every 10 minutes of listening, he would speak for 2 minutes about what he heard. No notes. No scripts. Just summary. Within weeks, his speaking speed doubled. Why? Because output forces organization. Now let's talk about confidence, because this is where everything comes together. Confidence is not a personality trait. It's a side effect of familiarity. You don't feel confident because English still feels foreign. It feels foreign because you don't interact with it enough in your own voice. Once English becomes something you use, not something you study, confidence appears quietly. And here's a hard truth most people don't want to hear. If you only practice English when you feel motivated, you will always stay inconsistent. Motivation is emotional. Progress is mechanical. Successful learners build small, boring systems and trust time. 5 minutes a day beats 2 hours once a week. Speaking imperfectly beats thinking silently. Consistency beats intensity. Another silent killer of progress is comparison. You see people online speaking fluently and think they're special. They're not. They're just further along the curve. You don't see their early stages. You don't hear their broken sentences. You don't feel their frustration. But they had it too. The difference is they didn't stop when progress became uncomfortable. Let me ask you something important, and answer it honestly. If someone listened to your English practice today, would they hear effort or avoidance? Because effort sounds messy. Avoidance sounds quiet. And silence doesn't build skill. Right now, your English doesn't need more theory. It needs presence. English needs to show up in your thoughts, your voice, your routine, not as pressure, but as habit. This is where fixing the problem becomes simple. Not easy, but simple. Speak a little every day. Listen to the same material repeatedly. Stop correcting yourself mid-sentence. Let mistakes pass. Let momentum grow. And most importantly, stop judging progress day by day. Progress reveals itself over weeks, not hours. If you stayed with this video until now, that already says something about you. You're not looking for shortcuts. You're looking for clarity. And clarity is power. Your English isn't broken. Your brain isn't weak. Your effort wasn't wasted. You were just pushing in the wrong direction. Now you know better. And when direction changes, speed follows. If this video helped you understand what was really holding you back, stay with English Insight Podcast. This channel isn't about learning English fast. It's about learning it right. Subscribe, not for motivation, but for structure. Share this video with someone who feels stuck. And leave a comment with one word that describes how you feel right now. Because awareness is the beginning of fluency. And this is where it actually starts.